All right, everybody, mic's on. Going to call to order the Ways and Means Committee, August 20th. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I do have one change to the agenda, Mr. Chairman, but also I wanted to advise the committee and those in attendance that Commissioner Showers requested an accommodation for today's meeting, given a current medical situation. He requested that of Bruce and myself, or excuse me, Chairman DeLong and myself. We conferred with legal counsel, and the current situation that Commissioner Showers is in is would be subject to a ADA accommodation. And we have reasonably accommodated him by patching him in on speakerphone. Hopefully, Commissioner Showers, you can hear everything and you are there.
I heard all the stories already, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I just want to make everyone aware of that. And also, Mr. Chairman, Director Collum has requested that item number 4, the administrative changes to the 911 plan, be removed from the agenda this morning. We have been advised very recently, yesterday and ongoing through today, that there may be additional changes to the service plan that are necessary. However, we have not received confirmation to formalize that, so we would request that that be removed so it can be addressed next month, once that official notification is received.
Thank you. Do we need a motion to approve that? Yes. All right.
Motion to approve as amended.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, at this time, we will entertain limited public comments, limited to 3 minutes. When you come up, please state your name and address. Anybody wishing to speak?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Tim Fair. I'm the Director of Clinton County Catalyst. Clinton County Catalyst is economic development within Clinton County. We've been around 20-plus years. We have over 100 members, business members, municipality members, education members within the county. We work together to make Clinton County a better place. You guys created us. You guys founded us. And you guys have walked away, and I get it. I didn't realize John is on the board of LEAP. I didn't know that, John. Somebody told me that. Is that accurate?
No, that's inaccurate.
That's inaccurate.
I'm not sure
Well,
how that came up, but no, that's inaccurate.
Okay. Well, I know some of the folks within the commissioners have strong tendencies with it, but someone told me that. I was not aware of that. Thank you for clarifying that. I looked at your agenda today, and I saw that you guys are talking about different initiatives that LEAP has listed on pages 23 through 25 of your notes. I can tell you this, after I read through these this morning, I was a tad amazed. Out of the 20 initiatives listed on here, 11 of them were created or initiated first by Catalyst, and then LEAP came in. Since I have been with Catalyst the last 2 years, there have been 4 LEAP individuals that have been Clinton County representatives for LEAP, 4 of them. One of them has reached out to me to work with Catalyst. Unique. I could go down through and I could tell you exactly how this has stacked up. We've brought people in, and LEAP has jumped on the bandwagon and moved us out of the way. We're not snarky, and I'm not desiring to be snarky here this morning. I've met Devon, seems like a nice guy, good wrestler. But the issue is, we've initiated these things, and they're grabbing onto these, and that's a concern. It is. The 2 big initiatives of LEAP in the last 3 to 5 years in Clinton County were, number 1, the mega site in Eagle Township. Number 2 was Norm Fasteners in Bath Township. Eagle Township and Bath Township are members of Clinton County Catalyst. Why? Because they definitely got a bad taste in their mouth with some of the things that were going on with LEAP. In the contract, there's 4 fundamental provisions within the contract of Clinton County and LEAP, okay? The contractor represents that it will perform such services and activities in a lawful, Not sure that was done with the mega site. Satisfactory, that definitely wasn't done in Bath Township and Eagle Township. And proper manner. Those are out of line. Whether you want to call that a material breach of contract in the law, thank you. They might call that a material breach of contract, of the contract that LEAP has with Clinton County. I can go through and I can list each one of these. I don't have enough time in my 3 minutes. Maybe I'll take Ann Hill's 3 minutes.
I'll defer my time.
But, you know, it's just amazing. Reno's North, that's the first one they list. Jesse Stipkak is a member of Clinton County Catalyst. I brought Jesse, I brought Redline Automotive, and it was amazing to me. Last time, Bob Showers elicited information out of Emma Boswick, who works with LEAP. Emma's a nice gal. But he elicited information. He kept saying, well, you're working on this, you're working on this. These were initiatives that Catalyst started. And now LEAP is saying, okay, so I brought 4 businesses to DeWitt Township. I serve on the Planning Commission of DeWitt Township, have been for 15+ years. I brought these 4 businesses in to talk about brownfield redevelopment and tax abatements. These people, and I've lived in Clinton County 30 years, they are expanding their businesses down what used to be called the South Central Corridor, South Cedar Street. In these corridors, there has been very little development. It's rough. When you cross Sheridan Road, it still looks like North Lansing for a couple, 3 miles when you come north. These people who are in this corridor with businesses are willing to spend thousands, hundreds of thousands, some of them into the millions. So I went to Rick Gallardi. I've known Rick for years. He was on the board of Catalyst. So was Bruce. So was Bob at one time. And it's just amazing to me. I brought them there. Rick completely switched them over because he's on the board of LEAP. He is on the board of LEAP. And that's what they've done. And it's amazing to me. These 4 businesses were Reno's, Jesse Stipkak. They were Redline Automotive, Nick and his dad, Scott Randall, great people, and they're looking to expand to the south of their business. Beth Landgraf, who bought a building that's been, people have been in and out of that building for 30+ years. She bought it, she rehabbed it, she's bringing in physical therapy connection to that building. It's on the corner of State and Old 27. And Hubble Construction, who has moved into DeWitt Township, and it's amazing some of the things they're doing. And we're trying to take the money that was given to Christiana Trailer Park. He was a bit of a bad actor, and move that over to Nathan Hubble. I'm working with Emily Devendorf right now, state representative down there, to do these very things. We're working with them on MISTA and housing, all kinds of grants that we're working on. It's amazing. But we brought them in. Next thing I know, they're having private meetings, and Jesse's calling me and said, were you invited to that meeting? I said, what meeting? No, didn't even know there was a meeting. So we're not being snarky, but in the neighborhood, in the sandbox, some of these folks are being snarky. Development of the old LC school. It's amazing. They're claiming that they're part of that. This is Ken Harris. They're not part of that at all. He's going to MEDC. Why? Because the village of Elsie gave him a brownfield redevelopment, because the county doesn't have one, but the village created this because everybody's on their own now, okay? But they weren't involved in this. We've been involved in this with Ken Harris since day one. It's amazing. And Shane Grinnell, when he was the village manager there in Elsie. Village manager, Chief Bryce, they're a member of Clinton County Catalyst. We're working with them on all kinds of things. We've got 2 grant writers. They're working with the village right now. ITC, they're a member of Catalyst. The High Wire folks, we're working with them to ease tensions with some of the townships here. We're doing that. It's working. Brian Terrell, who was here last at the last meeting, great guy. And he's willing to work together with townships, and I'm very grateful for that. Early stages, let's see, township, DeWitt Township. Yeah, it's amazing. We brought these folks in. Philip Sider, I go, wait a minute, thank you. Philip Sider, we brought him in. We brought LEAP in, we brought MEDC in, I'll never forget. I'm sitting there with Rachel Elzinga and Kristen Schliemann, who are MEDC representatives for Region 7, which is our region. By the way, the only group they deal with, they have 11 regions in the state, and the only group they deal with is LEAP in our region. In any other region, they deal with multiple groups. I've gone to Quentin Messer, who's the CEO of MEDC, and said, come on, work together with us. They're giving money for rural development. Out of the 3 counties, there's no greater rural development that needs done than in his Clinton County. So anyway, we brought those guys in. They go, wow. Back in that day, it was Jacqueline Hutchinson, who was the LEAP representative. And wow, we've never been in Maple Rapids before. This is pretty amazing. We introduced them to Philip Sider. We introduced them to Dewey's Trading Post. We introduced them to several groups that needed help. They moved us out of the way. In fact, when they had their grand opening at Philip Sider, we weren't even invited. Bob Showers was there. Dave Pohl was there. But Catalyst was not invited, and we introduced them. I've said enough. Have a great day. I think, you guys, at some point in time, you're going to need to make a decision as to what direction you're going to go. And LEAP has a lot of good things. They do. But Clinton County Catalyst, we're the boots on the ground. We know what's going on. We're working with many different people, over 100 members in the county. Hope
Thank you, Tim.
consider us. Thank you much.
I have a question. Would you prefer I wait till later to ask?
Yeah, yeah.
I've got an appointment, so I might leave. Is it okay to field it now? Is that okay?
We typically just allow the public to
Oh.
speak at this point, but if you want to have a conversation, you certainly can.
Yeah, no
Yep.
problem. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks
you.
for the time this
All
morning.
right, next up, opioid litigation update.
Is there any other public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, is there any other public comments? I didn't see anybody. I think Ann deferred their time, so, okay. All right, moving on, opioid litigation updates, Dave Middleman and Paul Lovat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With us this morning are Mr. Middleman from Graywall Law and Mr. Novak from White's Luxembourg to discuss 2 new settlements. You have proposed resolutions in your packet, and I will turn it over to our legal representatives. Thank you.
Thanks. Did you want to say anything to start? Good morning. We also brought Shireen Khan. I know particularly for the folks who are doing day-to-day administration of settlement issues, Shireen is one-stop shopping for your questions
We appreciate her.
and is
Nice to
fantastic.
put a face with a name, so
Yeah.
thank you.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about, this is probably an appropriate juncture, not only to talk about these settlements, but we are coming to kind of the conclusion, I think, of the litigation phase of this case. That's not to say it's entirely over, it's not. But with these settlements, I think everyone who has been listed as a defendant in the original lawsuit filed by Clinton County will have either gone bankrupt or have settled. And so although there is the prospect for settlements for companies that you did not sue, generating additional funds down the road, I think with these settlements, we're getting close to the end of the road. We set out the timeline. It seems like yesterday, but it's been 8 years since this litigation was initiated, with the filing of roughly 200 cases, including a number that Dave and I partnered on here in Michigan. Clinton County filed its lawsuit in 2018. One of the biggest concerns we had initially is there was a provision in Michigan's Product Liability Act that provided for basically immunity for companies who had had their drugs FDA approved. And in 2020, that issue was litigated before Judge Polster, the judge that presides over these cases nationwide. And he ruled in a case involving Monroe County that we were heavily involved with, that the FDA immunity provision under that statute, by the way, it's since been rescinded by the legislature just in the last term, that would not prevent us from at least going forward on a couple of the main claims that were in the Clinton County lawsuit, public nuisance and RICO. So that was an important early victory. Later, we had our first tranche of major national settlements with the distributors and Janssen Pharmaceuticals. And those, the negotiation of the structure of that initial settlement really has kind of been the structure that we've replicated for all the settlements since then. So I'll talk a brief second about how it was structured. There would be a national amount contributed by these defendants that would be allocated between the states. And then the question became, well, how is that money allocated between the states and local governments? And one of the initial motivating factors for Clinton County and a number of other counties in Michigan and cities in bringing these suits was not only to stem the opioid crisis, but also to prevent a repeat of the tobacco settlements where all of the money that came from those settlements went to the state and none of it came to the local governments. So starting with those distributor settlements, we negotiated with the Attorney General's office that any monies coming from opioid settlements in Michigan would be split 50-50 between the state and local governments. And then the question became, okay, and for the local governments, how does that 50% pot get further distributed? And so the criteria that we developed in that initial 2021 settlement that have been the same for subsequent settlements is first, for those local governments that stood up at the beginning of this case when it was far from certain that we would win anything, there needed to be been anywhere from, I think, 10 or 16% of an increase depending on the settlement. And then the other factors that are involved in how monies are adjusted either upward or downward for any local government are based on three facts that are maintained nationally for every county in the country. How many opioid use disorder diagnoses have been measured in the county? How many opioid deaths from having someone take an opioid and resulting in their death? And then the third one was how many opioid pills have been distributed by the wholesale distributors into your county, into the retail pharmacy chains and other retail points where people obtain prescription opioids have come into each of the counties. So those three factors were also used as metrics to form the statistical allocation of every local government in the country, including Clinton County.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Are they accounting for things that might have taken place like illegally and unprescribed medications?
The metric for how many pills come into the county does not. Well, actually, I'll take that back, because one of the primary arguments, particularly when we litigated against these national distributors and the retailers, is there are a whole array of red flags that under the Controlled Substances Act, National Act, there's also a Michigan equivalent to that statute, a whole number of red flags that you should look to that would identify particular transactions at retail and particular transactions at wholesale as being suspicious. And your obligation as a distributor or a retailer if one of those red flags suggests that a transaction is suspicious, is to suspend that transaction and either dispel the suspicion, or if you confirm that it's an illegitimate transaction, to make sure that not only do you not go forward with it, but you also report it to the appropriate law enforcement authorities. The industry fell down in that obligation. And I think to the extent that drugs went through the legal channels of distribution at the wholesale level and the retail level, but they just let the suspicious transactions go through, that would be accounted for in the metrics. Now, there has, as a result of the opioid epidemic, of course, been a growing channel of just illegal distribution. You're seeing it primarily now in fentanyl, but also in other forms. Those metrics are not captured in these national distribution metrics. But to the extent that you're seeing a higher volume of opioid use disorder diagnosed in the community of Clinton County, or a higher number of flat-out overdose deaths, those, I think, are in some respects, metrics that would at least capture some of the effects of that illegal distribution. So having set up that settlement structure in the first one, we replicated that structure for a number of additional settlements with the major retailers. Purdue, there was a settlement that included a provision that some of the Sackler family members, who some of you may have read or heard about, but these were individuals who notoriously owned the Purdue company and were aware of Purdue's centrality to pushing the whole myth that prescription opioids were non-addictive, and really led the way in what was an overprescribing pattern for drugs like OxyContin and others starting in the early 90s. The initial bankruptcy settlement or plan immunized the Sackler family defendants, who we named as defendants in your lawsuit, from any liability. And that was ultimately rejected by the United States Supreme Court. So the settlement was redone. The Purdue family members increased their financial commitment in the settlement after that, but there is no longer complete overarching protection of those Sackler family members. So if a particular individual who had a suit against them and against the corporation wanted to continue with their lawsuit against the Sackler family, they could do so. It will result in a reduction in the amount of the national pot that the Sackler family members have contributed. But that is basically how the settlement was restructured after that 2024 Supreme Court ruling. So that's one of the two settlements before you now. It has these combined Purdue and Sackler families. We've listed here the settlement awards to date. This isn't how much money you've received to date, but this is how much you are scheduled to receive under all the settlements that have been achieved to date. We do have the Purdue one included in there, as well as the generic manufacturers included in there. assuming that you go forward and enact the resolutions to approve those final settlements. For the Purdue settlement, that results in a national pot of $7.4 billion. Going through the distribution structure that I talked about a moment ago, the share of that is allocable to Clinton County will be $331,000 paid over the next 15 years. And the action items that have been presented to you will enable you to participate in the settlement if you approve the resolution. Similarly, the generic manufacturer settlements, these are small generic manufacturers, and you've got them listed on that page. I think with the exception of Mylan Pharmaceuticals, Clinton County didn't sue any of these folks. There was not large market share for their products in Clinton County. I think Mylan had a market share in Clinton of less than 2 or 3%, if I'm recalling it correctly. Nonetheless, you will receive from these other small manufacturers some settlement funds as well, assuming that the board approves the resolution. Going forward, there may be an additional 4 to 5 defendants also not in Clinton County's lawsuit, but they're settling nationally. And we may be in a position to present a settlement shortly to you on them. It's not finalized, and we didn't sue those companies, but we might have settlement proceeds coming for them. And that will, I think, pretty much wrap up Clinton County's litigation with one big caveat. There is also litigation against 2 pharmaceutical benefits managers, OptumRx and Express Scripts, for their role in the opioids epidemic. They are not included in Clinton County's lawsuit. It is possible, and they are nowhere near settled. Believe me, they are nowhere near settling. They are fighting things tooth and nail nationally. But looking down the road, if that litigation is successful, and it's a big if, the liability theories as to them are different. It may be the case that that settlement will inure to Clinton County's benefit, but I'm not promising anything in that regard. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the litigation has been, how we structured the settlements, and the current settlements that are before you. I'll finish unless you've got questions.
Does anybody have questions? Bob, are you still with us?
Yes, I haven't passed away yet.
Okay. I'll make sure.
I had a question.
Go ahead, John.
Has there been anybody looking into physicians that prescribed these drugs? I mean,
Oh,
they must have known that people were coming back, looking for more opioids. There's even processes that they, when they're searching around different doctors to get pills. Anybody looked into those?
absolutely, individual physicians have been typically prosecuted against. I'll give you one example. One of the defendants we sued early on was Insys. They manufactured an under-the-tongue fentanyl spray. And it was a drug that had a very limited use. End-of-life cancer patients for palliative care could use this under-the-tongue spray. Insys started marketing it illegally to podiatrists, to dentists, They had an insurance fraud scheme that was set up to characterize those transactions as being ones for palliative care to cancer patients. There was, and one of their largest national prescribers was a guy up in Saginaw County who was criminally prosecuted. And then the INSA story is getting way worse. I can expound on it if you want, but it makes Purdue look like angels, what they were doing with individual physicians. They didn't even go through the national distribution chain of using wholesalers and retailers. They sold directly to physicians, and the physicians would give the spray directly to the patients. The guy up in Saginaw County was criminally prosecuted and was actually brought out of prison to testify in one of the criminal prosecutions of the top brass of INSIS, their president, vice president, et cetera. And so the answer is yes. I think the more effective method for individual physicians is to prosecute them criminally. They are not really amenable to these larger national lawsuits because no matter how collectible they are, when you divvy that up in the kind of settlement structure that I've been talking about, the amount that Clinton County would get would be half a cent. But yeah, I think the main answer is criminal prosecution is the most appropriate remedy for physicians who've gone wayward.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Do you have one?
I do. Has any of this litigation addressed the way people prescribe this type of medication?
Yeah, there have been widespread injunctive relief requirements. Thanks for asking that because I didn't even mention it or include it in the materials. But for every one of our manufacturer settlements in our distributor and retail settlements, there are also injunctive provisions that require that the manner in which these things are distributed pay much greater attention to the types of red flags to make sure that if there are prescribers who are over-prescribing, that steps are taken to identify and suspend
Firmed up that system with
exactly, or in a more systemic way, particularly at retail. Also, the prescribing guidelines themselves have been and continue to be modified so that the days of giving someone a 30-day prescription of OxyContin after you have a root canal are over. That was at one point a routine practice, and 12% of the people who take a prescription opioid for 8 straight days will be on it a year later. So not everyone who takes a couple days of OxyContin is going to be hooked to them. But if you're talking about 10, 12% of the people that are, that's a massive number. So those types of prescribing practices, you bet, have changed dramatically, both in terms of FDA guidelines and with much more detailed and systemic approaches to how drugs, prescription drugs, are distributed and dispensed at retail.
I have one more question. Is that okay? Have the AMA guidelines changed because of what you've done as well?
Not sure. It wouldn't surprise me, but I am really focused on them.
And real quick, as far as dispensing, I mean, that'd be the pharmacist or pharmacy that would dispense these. Are there any sort of like internal controls, and maybe it's in there like a system? I don't know if you can speak to like proprietary systems, but that would monitor or flag like a particular individual prescribing maybe this a little more frequent than others, and things like that. Because I mean, ultimately, the pharmacy or pharmacist is the one dispensing these pills, correct?
Yeah.
And so it seems like there would be some sort of maybe like internal control or self-reporting requirements if they see something like this going on, that they would have to report to certain authorities for suspicion or something.
So one of the cases that I was involved in the trial of, we represented San Francisco. And San Francisco brought a lawsuit like Clinton's, that had, by the time we got to trial, I think the list of folks who, looking at this thing, the 2022 settlements, Walgreens had over 50% of the pharmacies, the retail pharmacies in San Francisco. They were a defendant, Allergan, Teva, and the distributors. But by the time of closing arguments, everyone had settled except Walgreens. Walgreens went to closing argument before the judge. And the huge issue for Walgreens in San Francisco is if they identified an overprescribing physician at a Walgreens retail location and suspended, would not fill a prescription, the person who submitted it would take it 6 blocks up the street to another Walgreens, and they would fill it there. There was no internal mechanism for having prescribers identified as problem prescribers being suspended across the Walgreens chain. And that was one of the things that, as a result of that lawsuit, was instituted, is much tighter red flag controls and problem prescriber identification, so that not only are those types of prescriptions suspended at the individual location, but they're suspended chain-wide. And also for the customers, if you identify a customer who's, gosh, this is his 4th OxyContin prescription being filled in the last 2 weeks. If you look at the ones that are being filled at different Walgreens, you can also identify that more systematically.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you. We do have 2 resolutions that are recommending for approval. John, do I need to read the resolution in entirety, or can I just, it's in our packet?
It's in your packet.
Okay.
It would not be necessary.
All right. So there are 2 resolutions here. The first one is recommending approval of resolution authorizing Lights and Luxembourg Law Firm to vote on Clinton County's behalf in favor of the bankruptcy plan for Purdue LP, entry of the proposed Michigan State subdivision agreement, and entry of the participation agreement for the Purdue Sacker settlement. Do I have a motion for approval of that resolution?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
All right,
Motion carries. The second one is recommending approval of a resolution authorizing entry of a proposed Michigan State subdivision agreement and entry of the participation agreements with each of the small manufacturer defendants. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Sheriff Inmate Medical Service, Captain McGuckin.
I would just mention, I'll just take care of it. This is a continuation of the discussion that was mentioned, raised by the sheriff's office last month regarding possible changes in inmate medical services. And the sheriff called me yesterday and indicated he had a conflict. He was in court representing preparing for a trial on a case that he had worked before he became sheriff. So he's unavailable to be here this morning, and sent Captain McGuckin to provide a recommendation and some positive news, so.
Good morning, Commissioners. After careful consideration, some discussions with our ongoing issues with our current medical provider, we've looked into other companies and decided to propose a request to change our medical provider from ACH to ATC, which is around-the-clock healthcare. By switching just this year, we should save around $20,000. With the rising cost, the continuing rising cost that ACH keeps charging us, we're not seeing the performance out of that company. We have lack of leadership, we have lack of nurse staffing, we have nurses working overtime to cover the gaps, and it's just too much of a strain. The current company changes their internal leadership every few months. We've gone through half a dozen or more. There's times where we don't even know who we're calling, and we try to email someone or call, and the email's been discontinued, or phone number doesn't work anymore, or they inform us that they are no longer with the company. This has been going on since I started. This has been a problem for well over a year, but it was going on before I started. We are confident with the new company. The first year savings we should see are gonna be well over $100,000. They're gonna provide consistent nursing to us, constant nursing. If someone calls in and they have enough notice, it's not an hour before their shift, they'll supply us with another nurse. There's other counties in the state that have switched to them. All the reviews we've gotten are good. They have contracts with the state. So they're a reliable company in our view, and we're requesting to invoke in the contract, there's under Article 4, Section 4.2, subsection 422, a 30-day notice, we can opt out of the contract and end our relationship with that company. And we're asking to do that. And with 30 days notice, we don't pay any kind of penalty or anything. Either party can end the contract with a notice, and we're prepared to do that. There'll be a payout on the contract, the current contract, but even with that payout, we're still gonna save the county and taxpayers around $20,000 just this year.
I would just add, from the captain's comments, this has been an issue that the sheriff's office has been exploring based on the services that have been provided. There are limited vendor choices, and I know from my colleagues in other communities, they have experienced similar service concerns with ACH and have just been exploring what other options exist. They are limited, and this, I think, is a good solution. An alternative solution, it potentially, and I would not recommend this, is why it has not been addressed, is to staff this with county personnel. It's a difficult situation to address. I come from another county that did that and continues to do that, struggles. We hear about nursing shortages nationwide, and when you are attempting to staff, and this is part of the issue that these vendors have, when you're attempting to staff professional nurses, which are already limited in supply, and then to attempt to target them to work in a correctional institution, so it takes a very special person, and that's even more limited. So I support the sheriff's request. We've analyzed it. I think it makes sense, and hopefully we'll move forward with a much more positive relationship with this vendor.
Thank you.
Any questions?
This sounds like a great idea. Is there just a little bit more information, just curiosity as far as, what do you know about ATC? It sounds like you said, there's limited people to choose from, just for the sake of discussion. Have they been around for a while? They're one of the major players, you know?
They are in the state, they're a franchise nationwide. They cover all of Michigan, and we were told except for Washtenaw County, there's an area down there that is another franchises area. They're throughout the state. They're very reliable, every one we've talked to. We're getting good feedback on them. When they came and they presented to us, they had a lot of their stats and their what they're willing to do for us as far as providing us with RNs, full-time, regular RNs instead of LPNs. Some of the other companies we're too small for around the clock. We're like a perfect fit because they have nurses in this area, in this region, where they can staff locally or regionally. If there's if someone goes on vacation, they bring them in from this area. So they're not trying to search for nurses all throughout the state or anything like that. They try to keep everyone kind of regionalized. So
They've got enough people to pull from in this area.
And they
such that
staff-
They can, that's nice.
yes, man, they staff for the state too, so for the prisons and things like that, so they have a lot of resources to go to if we do fall short.
And I think the other thing that you mentioned, Captain, is that there are other vendors that are based on our facility size and bed capacity, we are not the market that they would contract with
Too small?
for the services that we have, the 24/7 round-the-clock availability. So it would limit our, to pursue some other potential options would change the level of service that we have based
Further
on our,
limits to a
based on our
limited
size,
pool.
yes.
Okay.
We're too small.
And there are other vendors out there we could have chosen, but through the research we've done on them and personal knowledge of other jails that use them, there's a few that are involved in quite a bit of litigation because of their services. ATC is not one of them that we're finding any negative information on.
And in addition to that, I would just add that Sheriff's Office did provide me the Michigan references, and I did a cross-reference again for my colleagues from the administrative side as well. So, and received, positive feedback from other individuals that I trust and respect. So I'm comfortable with the recommendation again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
I just curious, and I thought I read somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Is it 24/7 that you have medical people on site or, okay?
We have 70 hours, we contract 70 hours
I
a week,
remember
yeah.
that now.
The 24/7 response though, if necessary.
24, we have the nurse practitioner and the nurses are available
Okay.
for call. And if there's ever any question, other than that, I can't get a hold of somebody, we'll ship them out to the hospital.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
A big picture would help, but if somebody were to sue based upon poor medical services, how would Clinton County be involved with that?
They would still be named. The sheriff's department, usually in lawsuits like that, that I've seen, they name everyone. The medical care provider is usually the one they're going after as well. I mean, they're gonna name if there's a deliberate indifference to medical needs or anything like that, or a lack of medical care or claim of lack of medical care, then usually it's the county, the sheriff, the sheriff's department, any deputies,
As well as the vendor.
the vendor, yeah.
If a patient had a grievance, then they would let the sheriff's department know?
Yeah, well, if it's a grievance, like just internal, like they have a problem while they're in
They feel like
custody.
their needs are being neglected, they would let the sheriff's department know?
Yeah, I would get, the sergeants or I would get a notice saying, hey, we don't feel my medical needs are being addressed. I would address it with the nurses to find out what's going on. We'll look into it, because sometimes the inmates don't agree with their level of care, but we do provide the same level of care they would receive if they were free and on the outside.
Here's my last question, please. And so there would be a random group of people who are coming in to monitor and provide those medical services as opposed to a lead or central administrator of medical health.
We will have a lead nurse at the jail, and we're with this company, we can keep our current staff. They will hire them, they'll vet them and do the backgrounds, but they'll keep on staff whomever we choose we want to keep. So our nurse practitioner, our lead nurse, one of our other nurses, we can keep them, and that's who will be reporting to the jail every day. And whatever hours there's a gap, ATC will backfill that with another nurse. It could be a random nurse, it could be someone that's a different person each time, but they will backfill that spot with another one. But the main nurses will be there every day.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We have a motion, or, sorry. There's a request to approve terminating the existing contract with ACH and to enter into a new agreement with ATC for inmate medical services with an effective start date of October 1st, 2025. Do I have a motion?
I'm good.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Next up, administration, credit card policy update.
Yes, included, it starts at the policy or the recommended revision starts on page 15 of your packet. I'm requesting that the credit limit for the county's credit card be increased from 5,000 to up to 20,000. Cost of goods, cost of services, inflation, et cetera, have made the limit that we have of 5,000, and I would just emphasize that this is the only credit card we use for the county. All credit transactions go through this single credit card. The limit of 5,000 is becoming insufficient to be able to handle the need of the county. There are several things that are going on. Obviously, we're changing to more vendors are changing to electronic means of payment exclusively. They're unwilling to wait for a check. There are timing issues, et cetera, in terms of the need. And 5,000 has become impractical for the county, an operation of our size. And I would just mention that, there has been some reporting locally regarding credit card situations in other municipalities. The one I'm thinking of specifically had over 100 credit cards individually assigned to some employees with varying credit limits of up to, I think, 25,000. This is, again, I emphasize, we are extremely limited in the use and utilization of a credit card. But even given that current policy and practice and standard, the approved credit limit of 5,000 is making it impractical for us to be able to continue to operate effectively as needed. So that is the only change. The policy does currently provide that a card may be issued to the sheriff's office. That there is not one currently issued to the sheriff's office, and I don't currently contemplate that at this time based on the scope of the permissible use in item 6.2. So that is my recommendation, and entertain any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
John, is there anybody besides the sheriff's office that has credit cards?
No, the county has one single credit card. It resides in my office under lock and key and is provided with my approval for use by departments as needed. So everything goes through administration.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm just curious, should the budget be referenced in things like this where you have like you know, these, we have so many purchases, should it include language that says, you know, within the confines of the budget? Just to be, or these non-budgeted items, I guess. I would imagine all these are coming out of our budget.
Those are, yeah, I mean, any credit card purchase, and it's referenced in the purchasing policy itself, the use of a credit card, so that it's cross-referenced to the use of the credit card as a means of purchase for appropriated and budgeted items. So I think it would be duplicative to reference it here, but I mean, because the purchase itself, regardless of the means, is subject to the budget resolution and the purchasing policy.
Okay, because I did review our purchasing policy, and the only reference to budget in the purchasing policy was the capital outlay items and not the non.
Well, I also said the budget resolution,
Okay,
so.
okay. Just want to be
But, I mean, it would,
detail oriented.
I mean, an additional reference could be made. I'm trying to see where it would be most appropriate, if that would be the preference of the committee.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Bob?
I think it makes sense to increase it. This is no longer 2014, and it allows the sheriff's office with the authority of our administrator to make purchases. Otherwise, it may slow up the process in the 21st century. Getting data quicker or whatever they use it for is in our best interest. So without further ado, I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll support it.
Any further discussion? I just have one question or discussion. So any of these expenses are coded or keyed back to that requesting? So if this was for a particular department, those expenses are
Yes.
billed back to that department's budget, against that department's budget?
Yes, they,
Okay.
all the bills are, actually, I thank you for raising that, part of the statutory authorization that provides municipalities the authority to use these types of devices also, prohibits us from incurring interest charges on that. So these are, the charges are reconciled and paid on a monthly basis. We don't incur interest costs as part of using a credit card.
And this is our credit limit, correct?
Correct.
The limit on the card, okay. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next up, planning update, Lynn.
And forgive me for being new in this planning seat in terms of how much information you would like. You have a brief memorandum. We have several items that were recommended to the Board of Commissioners at last Thursday's Planning Commission meeting. You have a brief summary. Would you like me to walk through each of those just in a brief couple sentences and then take questions?
What is the desire? Yes, I think that would be fine. Thank you.
Under old business, there was a rezoning request that the board had remanded back to the Planning Commission for reconsideration of the facts. The Planning Commissioners did consider the facts. They had an engaged discussion, and they voted again with the same outcome by the same commissioners. So everyone who had originally voted to deny it, this time voted against a motion to approve it. And so it's recommended back to you in the same condition.
Did the discussions change or move? Same content for the most part? No positions have
There was a discussion about, primarily about the role that the township's opinion should play in these conversations. Finding of fact, following the ordinance, you had a staff report that says this checks all the boxes. The primary opposition came because of local township opposition. And so there was a animated discussion about that. And Commissioner Hurticant may want to offer his insights as a member of the Planning Commission.
Sure. The discussion, one of the reasons, or the main reason what I understood from Duplain Township was they considered this spot zoning. But when we looked at the future master plan, this is totally in that plan, it was included for this to be rezoned, or could be rezoned. It does follow that map that was approved. It checked all the boxes. There was no reason to, and we're only talking about rezoning. We're not talking about any division of land or property. This is strictly a rezoning request, and that's all that we were focused on. That was our task. And I, as a board member, wasn't presented with any information, conclusive information that or a reason for not approving this request. I still have some suspicions, which I'm not comfortable with, that I will be bringing up at our Board of Commissioners meeting, and some comments that were made after the meeting that are very concerning to me. I do not see any reason that was presented that would be a reason to deny this request. And I think the 3 individuals that voted to approve this were very sound. We had experts, 2 experts that explained to us and defined what spot zoning is. This clearly isn't. They gave examples. I don't believe the requester was in the audience.
The requester was not able to attend, but provided a one-page written support for their application, quoting back to us contents of our own master plan, compatibility with surrounding uses, and some of our goals within the master plan itself. They did let us know that they had work commitments and were sorry they could not be in the room.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the administration a question?
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
John, we asked them to reconsider. They have not. What powers do we have now?
The Planning Commission's recommendation will be presented to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners still has the authority to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission or overrule it per se. The Board of Commissioners could take different action than has been recommended by the Planning Commission.
So put that in layman's terms, if we offered a motion to approve this and it passes, then we are overriding the Planning Commission's denial?
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'm going to make a motion that we override the Planning Commission's denial and approve the action as presented.
That, Commissioner, that would be, this is just a discussion and report to the committee. That motion would be appropriate if you were to offer that at the Board of Commissioners meeting next Tuesday. It's unnecessary this morning.
Well, forgive me because I'm taking a bunch of meds, so my thinking wasn't clear today. So I'll be happy to make that motion at the Board of Commissioners meeting, which I hope I can show up for.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'll also be preparing material more comprehensive material for your Board of Commissioners packet. And in that, you will have the original staff report that will have recommended motions for approval or for denial that you can work with.
What township is this?
Duplain.
Duplain. Next item that is recommended for approval to the Board of Commissioners is a second extension on a special land use permit for the Hop family. They have a proposed gas station convenience store located on the north side of M21, just west of 127. They are between the city of St. John's and Bingham Township's water systems. And they have been monitoring the conversation to connect those two systems, not wanting to install a commercial well only to be provided water soon after. And the Planning Commission recommends that this second extension be granted. It would be for another 1 year.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, would this be something that, let me ask the administration, is this something that we would act on at the board meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, then the Planning Commission is sending 3 additional rezoning recommendations to you. The first one is submitted by Scott Biggs. This is for a strip of property it's in the original plat of the unincorporated village of Eureka in Greenbush Township. And there's, if you're familiar with that area, there's a general store and then there's a house on the corner and there's a strip of land in between those two properties. It's actually owned by the home but used by the store. And they're cleaning that up by rezoning that section to C1 that's used by the store, and then they'll do a lot line adjustment so that the property used by the general store is correctly zoned and included in that parcel. The Planning Commission recommends approval of that request.
Any questions? Okay.
Next recommendation to approve a rezoning request from Dan and Carrie Dickinson. They are currently in a mineral resource district. I will note that this is not too far geographically from that first remanded case we talked about, just for reference. The zoning ordinance has been amended to no longer identify properties in the mineral resource district and is looking to phase those out over time. The property is currently being used as a residence. It's an 80-acre parcel. The request is for an A3 zoning, and it aligns with the future land use map. Received support from agencies and no public comment objections. You have a recommendation to approve that rezoning.
Any comments, questions? I do have one comment. I was very perplexed by the way that this was voted on as opposed to the other 5 acres in Duplain Township. These are exactly very similar requests. One was denied, this was approved. So I was very perplexed by the way that vote came out. That's the only comment I have.
And the last recommendation to you is a request for rezoning from the Teresa A. Phelan Trust, submitted by her children. This is one parcel that's approximately 8 acres in size, directly adjacent to the village of Westphalia in Westphalia Township. It's an 8-acre parcel that is currently zoned A2. The request is to rezone to RR. The rural low density, that aligns with the future land use map, was supported by neighbors and the village and agencies. So you have a recommendation for approval of that rezoning as well.
Any questions? Bob, any questions?
I assume, thank you, Mr. Chair. I assume the village and or the township is, okay with this?
That's correct.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
See you Tuesday.
See you Tuesday.
Bruce, how you doing? Do we want to take a short recess or just continue through?
If we can make it relatively timely, I'm good, but it's either that or I'm gonna ask.
Yeah. No, we should be just about done here. So next up is the is the September 2025 open meeting and events calendar. Take a look at the calendar. Is there any questions or?
Two comments. You'll notice there is an additional committee meeting on September 11th scheduled for a budget discussion. I'll present my budget recommendation. Then the following week, obviously, the standing of the regular Ways and Means Committee and HR committee meetings on the 18th. And then you will notice that the board meeting was moved up 1 week to the 23rd because the standard date conflicts with the Michigan Association of Counties Conference. I believe we'd fail to have a quorum based on the registrations I've seen, so. Those are the only changes I'd point out.
All right, great. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the accounts payable and invoice totals.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the planning and zoning furniture. It was a couple thousand over the budget of what we budgeted. I'm assuming that was gonna end up as a budget amendment in the future?
I thought we already addressed
Yeah,
that.
So the planning, it was split, right? Building was one half and planning was the other half. Planning was within budget, the building was over budget, and that was already addressed.
Okay,
Yeah, I thought we had already
Yes.
taken that against, the total project was within the budgeted amount, but the distribution between the two operations and funds in this case was slightly different than anticipated.
okay. And my second question is with respect to the opioid settlement payments from our grant. I noticed that there's three for the three folks that were awarded the grant, and I didn't see payments for the Journey Court or Veterans Court, and I just didn't know how those were different.
Those were structured because those are based on county county personnel costs. So those agreements, those won't go through accounts payable because it will be an internal transaction and we'll make billings and payments on a quarterly basis through, we won't issue
They won't show
checks.
up the same.
Yeah, we won't issue accounts payable checks to the court for those programs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Support. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, commissioner comments. We'll hold off on those if everybody's okay for the HR. Administrators report.
Two quick things. I think last month I reported that I had submitted a letter of intent to pursue rural readiness grant funding. We did receive notice the first of this week. Unfortunately, we were not invited based on the amount of requests that they had received in the project that we described. We were not invited to apply for a grant, for grant funding. As you recall, that was anticipated, or the project was the planned master plan for the fairgrounds. So based on not being eligible to pursue those grant funds, we will be finalizing a recommendation for your consideration in September to move forward with the project as originally contemplated, utilizing county funds. So we'll bring that to you in September. I've included as standard the report that I received from LEAP that was discussed previously. And I guess I would just again confirm, I don't know where the inaccurate information regarding me being a member of LEAP board, that's inaccurate. I just state that again. I don't know where that information came from. So, I don't have anything to add other than that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, John. Any other business?
No, nothing
Okay.
for me, sir.
All right, we are adjourned.
Okay,
Just
you ready, Bob?
what was that? Sorry.
You ready for the HR committee to start?
Go for it.
All right, gonna call this meeting to order at 10:25. I'd like to amend the agenda and remove number 5, the administrator controller contract.
The motion, or asking for a motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll support that, or I'll move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Limited public comment?
Madam Chair,
Aye.
I have a,
Addition.
an addition to the agenda, yes.
Okay.
And you'd like to add, item 3A, consideration of a letter of agreement between the county and the Capital City Labor Program Sheriff's Office, the law enforcement unit. And you should have received that in your yellow folders this morning.
Does someone need to amend their motion to include that?
Did they vote on that? Okay, then yes.
I'll amend the motion to include 3A, letter of agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we are at limited public comment. Nobody? Okay. Next, we go to the telecommunicators union grievance.
You should have received in your yellow folder also a written appeal of a grievance denial submitted by the telecommunicators union relative to the health insurance changes that were implemented May 1st and the resulting changes in coverage and employee contributions as a result of the historical Health Alliance process. And with us this morning is Miss Lizzie Mills, County Labor Attorney Representative, who will be discussing the grievance and county's positions for your consideration in determining the outcome of this grievance appeal. Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to be here today to discuss this matter. As the administrator has articulated well, the generic background of this pertains to the method and timing of changes that were made to healthcare coverage and healthcare contributions for the employees. I believe that you do have a copy of the Step 2 written grievance appeal, which was authored and provided to you by the Capital City Labor Program dated, I think it's dated today, but it would have been received sometime late yesterday. It is approximately 4 pages itself, and then there are supporting materials of the actual grievance form and some contribution and details regarding the costs themselves. So I know that each of you prepares appropriately for all of these meetings, so I will not read this document to you, of course. But from a big picture, the issues that we are facing with this particular grievance really incorporate a variety of pieces. One of those pieces is the historical reliance of the county and all employees, including represented employees, on the Healthcare Alliance as a vehicle for annually reviewing healthcare, assessing any potential costs that are going to be additionally incurred year over year, and assessing what potential changes could be made to coverage to hopefully tackle some of those increases, because as you all know very well from your regular lives and your roles here at the county, healthcare seems to be one of those things that never gets cheaper, except for in a handful of years where we experienced maybe a negative 0.1 increase or decrease in the overall cost. So of course, over these past 20 plus years, the county has been utilizing fairly effectively this Healthcare Alliance to accomplish those objectives, right? And to ensure that there continues to be a very solid benefit offering to your employees and to manage the costs associated with that. Healthcare is a very important benefit, but it also continues to be very costly for both parties. For approximately 10 to 12 years of the first existence of the Healthcare Alliance, there were not any specific content in contracts, collectively bargained contracts, on the subject of how and when we're going to rely upon the Healthcare Alliance, what the cost share premium, or cost share allocations will be, et cetera. Shortly after 2010 and 11, there were some discussions with two of your law enforcement units at the time about clarifying that the parties would rely on this alliance to actually bargain changes. In lieu of coming to the bargaining table and having a separate meeting uniquely about healthcare, that the parties were recognizing the Healthcare Alliance was the vehicle for accomplishing that. Because as many of you probably know, healthcare is a mandatory subject to bargaining, all of the aspects related to healthcare, the cost share, et cetera. And no party is allowed to unilaterally change healthcare without having gone through an appropriate process unless there's something else outlined between the parties. One of those changes did occur in the 2016-17 contract for the telecommunicators, for whom we are here today, where that was actually the first contract where any attempt was made to describe what the cost-sharing responsibilities would be between the parties. None of the other units have similar contract language, and although perhaps the Capital City Labor Program on behalf of the telecommunicators would argue maybe we were doing something different with them, my suggestion to you, as having been long sitting in this seat and having my mentor been involved in the process of the Healthcare Alliance since its inception, was that the parties were very clear on how the healthcare cost-sharing allocations had been occurring for the preceding 10-plus years to that point. The issue that we are now looking at today pertains to the telecommunicators, who are taking, or at least at this time announcing, a different view of what they understand their cost-share allocations to be according to their contract language. I presume you all had an opportunity to look at their contract. Parts of that cost-sharing allocation language are listed in the appeal document itself. So you'll see references to it in the document. The entirety of that can be found at Article 13, Section 2 of the parties' agreement. So that you won't see that repeated, and I will suggest to you that there may be a good reason for that in the appeal. The big picture here is the distinction, I think, well outlined on page 2 of the union's appeal, which is how do we decide what the first 3% going to the county means and the party sharing the difference thereafter really means in real dollars. The union is articulating their belief that instead of looking at the actual cost difference from year 1 to year 2, so the dollars difference in premium, you are instead to look at what is the percentage increase that is being foisted upon the parties, or perhaps agreed upon through the Healthcare Alliance, and then take off 3% from that sum. As opposed to what I think we can fairly comfortably say is, again, a 2+ decades process that has been generally followed in the years that there have been cost share changes, where the dollar value of difference for the premiums has been assessed first. Any 3%, the first 3% of that going to the county. Any differences thereafter is a 50-50 share between the county and the employees. The telecommunicators, through their union, the Capital City Labor Program, again, I think well stated their various positions on this. This is consistent with our understanding of what their challenges were to the county's decision-making in this. And as you can see at the top of page 2, one is their view that the process utilized by the county this time, which is believed to be, and I believe demonstrably can be shown to be the same as it has been historically, where there has been cost share changes, is inconsistent with their understanding of the contract. Their second argument is that, well, we have a different view, but even if our view is not exactly what the contract says, the contract must therefore be ambiguous, meaning it is susceptible to more than one reasonable interpretation. And in that situation, they believe that any ambiguity should be construed against the employer, because it was the employer who, back in the 2016-17 contract negotiations, proffered the cost-sharing element into the contract. And then finally, in a sort of catch-all position, which I will speak to very specifically toward the end of my comments, is a general position that the county failed to bargain. And as I mentioned, healthcare being a very important mandatory subject to bargaining, and there being reference in the contract language to the obligation to meet and bargain with the party before making changes, it could be a very compelling argument. Having said all of that, what we have uncovered, and I will give excellent credit to the administrative team and everyone who dug into records of, again, 20-plus years to identify what we have information about, and over the course of that 20-plus years, having kept a document running showing what are those changes that have been made each year to healthcare coverage or cost share. We have a fairly good record to know what has the history been. Contrary to what we see listed in the appeal, the Capital City Labor Program indicates that there haven't been any cost-sharing opportunities to actually implement the language in the telecommunicators contract in the last 8 or 9 years since that language was added. But in fact, we did make changes in 2020 through a pretty significant series of conversations, 2020 being, nothing else was going on that year in the first quarter at all. And so we have a substantial amount of information about the fact that there was set to be a very significant increase in health insurance, and there was a lot of work done by the Healthcare Alliance to tackle that issue, try to make changes to healthcare coverage, and ultimately do adopt and recommend through the Healthcare Alliance changes to the cost share that were in fact implemented for all employees across bargaining units and non-union staff. What is interesting about that process is that the telecommunicators were represented in those meetings by their appropriate representatives. They were present in 2020. We didn't hear any challenge to how that was implemented, even though those were pretty significant changes being made both to coverage and to cost. And so we come to this year where I don't have to tell you, I think I was here when you actually adopted the healthcare changes for a different reason, but you have spent through yourselves, through the Healthcare Alliance and the administrative team, a lot of time trying to sort through the issue of what we're going to be an extreme amounts of increase and the need to make an adjustment, get a different source for healthcare, really tackle this very differently. So certainly it wasn't taken lightly. The issue that I think is big picture before you is twofold. One, you have a bargaining unit saying that's not how we understood that language to be applied, and we think you're doing it wrong now, which raises the question of why did we not hear about this in 2020? And certainly the administration team can talk more about their research on the subject of 2020. We know it was kind of a twilight zone, but there were a lot of meetings, there's a lot of documentation, there were minutes of these Healthcare Alliance meetings, et cetera. So that is a question that certainly can be proffered. That doesn't mean that anytime they see a new issue, they can't raise it, but it raises a question of genuine confusion. Like, is there actually confusion, or is this an interpretation that's been taken because there's a frustration about how much the increase was this time, right? So, sometimes we don't pay too much attention if we can manage it, and yet in this time it feels perhaps that was a bridge too far for the telecommunicators, and so they're bringing this issue forward to see if you will agree with them. That wholly relies on review of the contract language. The other issue that this grievance presents, as I foreshadowed a few moments ago, is this concept of bringing the issue forward despite a very clear process of utilizing the Healthcare Alliance for, again, 20-plus years. It was established, I think, in 2002, and that is the method by which you have been reviewing and analyzing healthcare plan changes and cost sharing, et cetera, as and if needed. In this instance, the telecommunicators received exactly the same notice and opportunity to participate in all of the Healthcare Alliance meetings as they have in all prior years. There was no notice at any time, to my knowledge, and the administrative team can certainly confirm, that the telecommunicators were refusing to participate, or that as they received minutes of meetings that had passed that they had not attended, that they disagreed with anything that was happening. There were no queries to say, hey, what's going on there? We might like to do something different than work through the Healthcare Alliance. None of that sort of intentional direct communication with the employer about a potential problem coming their way. In fact, we don't learn that there's a concern until after the changes are adopted by the county, all of which, again, was fully given notice to the telecommunicators. So what this presents to you is a very important process. The grievance procedure is the way to resolve disputes, right? That's why we're here. Sometimes you can resolve them early. Sometimes it needs to come to you and be on your committee agendas for something like today. Ways to review grievances certainly is to look at the plain language of the contract, to look at the evidence of how the contract has been applied, and to consider any other factors that may be perhaps compelling to you in determining, yes, we agree with the telecommunicators, we need to adjust our calculations to account for the way that they have interpreted it as to their employees, which would vary from how everyone else in the county's contributions have been implemented since you made that change. If you were to take that route, which again is fully within your authority to do so, we likely would need to have, make this a very important element of the negotiations that are coming up here. We're about to open up in the next month or so, I would imagine. We'll sit down with them for their restart of their contract negotiations. And this would be a topic that, again, if you were to grant their grievance for this year, we would then have, I think, pretty clear marching orders as to what needs to be accomplished in bargaining, and we could not settle a contract without their agreement that we were going to be applying it as we say we have been applying it for the last 20-plus years. So that does set up a bit of a conflict focus already in negotiations, which I'm not a shrinking violet, I don't mind conflict, but I also know that that can set a tone for the bargaining table that may not be desirable overall for labor relations. The other potential way to look at this is to take the whole big picture, and with your understanding and experience so far, with information you've gleaned from the administrative team and what I've been able to share to you in many, many words today, and say, well, maybe the contract is not as clear as the parties could have made it, which is certainly true. It happens on a regular basis. The parties do the best that they can in the moment. But if they're not aware that there's an actual problem being solved, sometimes you think what you wrote captures what you intended to do at the time. And couple that with some of these, I would say in true litigation, we would call it unclean hands, the concept where you can't sit on your hands or engage in behavior that doesn't move the ball forward and then point to the other party and say you did a bad thing. So you certainly could look at it from that overall holistic approach as well. The question that I always get asked at meetings like this, where we're coming to the governing body with discussion about a grievance, where you haven't been in the mix of it, is, well, like, if this goes to arbitration, what are our chances, right? And I can tell you that this is in fact a very interesting case, because if you cherry pick certain pieces of the language, it is not difficult to try to make the leaps that the union has articulated here. I think when you read the contract as a whole, which is the mandate of the arbitrator when they receive this, that the illustrative example that's in the material clearly captures the idea that the parties were intending to develop a cost share arrangement where the county took the first part, we shared in the rest. The union's perspective on this does not account for all of the money that would need to be expended when there is an increase in healthcare costs. Said another way, we would take a certain amount X, and they would take a certain amount Y, and we would get a little spillover, but there would still be some amount of money that nobody's apparently paying for. That, I think, reflects that their interpretation yields an absurd result. And I don't mean that to be flippant. That's actually a labor law principle where a contract interpretation is to be avoided if it yields an absurd result. If the parties had intended that the county would in fact just take sort of any willy-nilly portion of the county increase costs for healthcare, we could have written that. We didn't write that. There is an example in the contract that says, for instance, if the health insurance increase is 9%, the county takes the first 3%, and the parties share the next 3%, right? So the next 3% goes to the employees and through the union, and the employer takes the next 3%. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. In the interpretation that we have seen from the union to date and the way that it's been articulated to us, in that example, we would not in fact have covered all 9%. And I think this creates an interesting question. Could I see an arbitrator siding with the union on a narrow view of the contract itself? Certainly. I can't guarantee what arbitrators do. Unlike our esteemed courts of law, they are not bound to any sort of precedent or anything else. Whatever feels right for them and based on their experience is what they do. I also do think there is, however, a very strong argument about how the parties have been doing this all along, and the idea that there's a claim of a failure to bargain by the county where there was every opportunity for them to come to the Healthcare Alliance, participate in the process, or even inform us that they had a problem with what was being done at the Healthcare Alliance because they had the information before them. All of that being said, which was a lot of words, but you may have become accustomed to that with me, is to say that I think the county is not in an unsound position to deny the grievance. I do think you should expect that they will take it to arbitration if we do not agree with their position at this time. Doesn't mean that should compel your decision one way or the other, but you should be informed. I think they feel that they ought to at least ask an arbitrator to review the issue, which again is the last step of their dispute resolution process, and they're absolutely entitled to make that ask. Did I miss anything that you might like to cover?
No, not at this time.
I have a question. Oh, you go.
I thought under the union contracts, there was a letter of understanding as participating with the Health Alliance, you waive your right to any grievances on that area.
The units who are entitled to 312 arbitration over their contract negotiations have that language. So it includes a language of like a waiver, an Act 312 waiver. It also, as noted in the union appeal, those contracts specifically include a line to the effect of and participation in the Healthcare Alliance satisfies the county's obligation to bargain. Those contracts in particular, as I know from you were actually many times on those bargaining tables with us, those tend to require additional clarity in that way because they have such additional leverage under the law enforcement specific units. The telecommunicators do not have that same authority to go to Act 312 arbitration. And therefore, I think that over the years, there was, again, operating on, at the time, approximately 13 years of this is how we've been doing it. And understanding that we're just writing down what we already understood was happening. And that's what they're challenging at this point. You know, they're pointing to, well, the other contracts say this specifically satisfies the authority to the right to bargain. There's also carve outs against what can be done about it. Ours doesn't say that, therefore you must have meant something different with us. It's not an inappropriate argument for them to make. I would make the same argument if I were in their shoes. I think when the whole picture is looked at, though, it is not a fair argument. And I think we can with a straight face give that argument to an arbitrator.
So, John, were these folks at the table with us during discussions with the Healthcare Alliance?
No, as they did not participate, as Ms. Mills indicated. However, as they received the initial invitation, to which we received no response, both membership as well as their bargaining representative at the time, to raise the issue of whether it was going to be viewed differently than has been in the past. In addition to that, Ms. Mills mentioned that after each meeting, not only members of the Health Alliance receive informational minutes of what was discussed, we distribute those to all employees, which would include all of the membership. So it's, again, those are delivered to all employee county assigned email addresses. We do not request receipt and read verification on all those, but, so I can't speak to whether every member read those. I would just say, from time to time, we all may be guilty of receiving an email and not reading. But notice was provided on an ongoing basis of what the discussions were throughout the process, both to member representatives as well as membership at large.
To the effect that this particular paper, for example, these calculations were distributed to everybody and they demonstrate the 3%, it clearly shows that the dollar amounts are used. You know what I mean? Am I correct? That
The document that you just shared was distributed at, I believe, to all employees, because there was a change. It was the first change that had occurred relative to employee contributions since the 2020 year. So it had been a number of years. However, as part of the alliance process, there were also, which I think is important in terms of the context of the position the union is taking, throughout that intervening time, there were changes in the benefits as well as the carrier, which constitute changes in health insurance program that were affected or effectuated through the Health Alliance process again, without being challenged as a arbitrary unilateral change under the terms of the contract language. I mean, that is an important piece to the county's position, is that the language addresses two things. The language addresses employee contributions as well as changes in coverage. Both occurred in 2025. However, between 2020 and 2024, there were other changes in coverage which the Alliance recommended to the Board of Commissioners, which prevented or avoided a change in employee contributions. So there were changes in coverage, whether it were increases in deductibles, changes in health, pharmacy formularies, or at one point, the carve out of prescription coverage, so it was self-funded. Those are all health insurance changes that were processed and recommended through the Health Alliance as part of this historical process. I think that's I provided more than an answer to your question, but it was important context, I believe, in terms of
Understood.
the process overall and how it's
Because this
been
grievance,
handled.
this grievance is purely on the idea of dollars versus percentages. And we showed everyone that it was dollars on this paper, right? That's,
Yes, I think the combination that Administrator Fuentes brings forward is really, it is an important part of the overall argument, right? That it is not simply that the employer has done something wildly different when it comes to contributions. But first of all, that didn't happen. But it's this idea that everything has been consistently adjusted time over time with this Healthcare Alliance through this particular process. No changes in how we communicated that to the employees, always a free flow of opportunity for receipt of documentation. And as you note, in a copy of a document that shows exactly the formula of how things are being calculated with no challenge raised until after the board actually made its decision to effectuate a change.
so the reason that this grievance can be brought is because we had a healthcare change. And then that language, I'm just trying to wrap.
Both pieces, right? Because we changed coverage materially. I would say, again, there were many benefits that were afforded to the employees as a result of those changes that were very solid. Material doesn't necessarily mean bad. But also the fact that they do bear an increased contribution rate that is significantly different than what they have seen before. You know, if you're accustomed to paying a particular amount and it now suddenly has increased, you know, to the tune of whatever the dollar value was, I can't recall off the top of my head. It's the two-prong piece, but the grievance is only about the cost share element. They are not challenging the other changes that were made. And I think, again, when you take that step back and you take the whole picture approach of what have we been doing, you know, from having been at the bargaining table, I don't appreciate the idea of that's the way we've always done it being an answer, but it can be informative. And I think that's what we're looking at here.
So they had the opportunity to review the increases, right, during the negotiations. And they had the opportunity to come forth with any concerns that they had, but they chose not to. Did I hear that correctly?
They had the opportunity, notice of an opportunity to attend no fewer than, I think, at least 5 Healthcare Alliance meetings. And as I understand, also would have received notice of what was discussed at those meetings after each of those meetings. We did not hear anything at all from the bargaining unit, from their then union representation. At the time, Capital City Labor Program was not the union. They've recently made a change. We didn't hear anything from that predecessor union. And we don't hear anything until after this body makes the change to the overall plan and contribution rates.
Any other questions? So we need to decide whether we are going to continue to deny the grievance or,
or grant it, and additionally, if you were going to consider granting it, there would be discussion about what the appropriate remedy would be. I mean, they've made a recommendation, you are not bound by granting the grievance to the relief that they seek. Did I say that properly?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. If you do not, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if you do not grant the grievance in the way that they like, they may still try to push the grievance forward and contend that they haven't been made whole as is appropriate, but certainly it is always the case that, you know, the employer can take action to address what they believe is a wrong in the way that is appropriate, and they have the right to continue challenging if it's insufficient. So to that extent, Administrator Fuentes is correct. You could simply say, well, we are persuaded by the argument presented by the union, and thank you for that additional information about process and failure to challenge Ms. Mills, but we're unpersuaded by that. And we agree that they should be subject to a different calculation for their health insurance costs. They need to be given back any excess funds that were taken from their paychecks. And somehow commit to additional collective bargaining with these folks. You could absolutely make that decision.
And what is interesting as part of this is somewhat unusual. Typically, part of the remedy with respect to health insurance coverage in particular, when there is a change, that there would be, part of the remedy would be to restore the coverage to what it was prior to the change. That is not part of the request in this case. Typically, changes are made relative to health insurance coverage, which typically are to the disadvantage of the employee population, although not always, but coverage, said simply, coverage gets worse and costs the employees a greater contribution. And that's part of the reason why a change is made. I would just note that that's not part of the remedy being sought here.
Because if we were to go back to what we had, it would cost even more.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir?
what do you want, John?
I don't think I should make that recommendation. The administration's position was stated in the denial of the grievance as presented to you.
So if we make a motion, do we need to will we make a motion for the board, a recommendation to the board to do what?
He recommended that we continue to deny the grievance.
Okay, do we need a motion to that effect, or just a recommendation to the board? What's the proper?
This body.
Motion and action by this committee.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
For support?
I will support it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to 3A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Included in your yellow folder, the update, it was received late yesterday. It was mentioned previously that we are currently in negotiation, I think it was, that we're in negotiation with several of the bargaining units. We are attempting to resolve this matter as part of those negotiations long-term. It will still be the intent of that. However, what is before you is necessary to be able to fill an assignment within the sheriff's office. Sheriff needs to assign an officer to the Metro Squad. There are contractual provisions that create a process for that assignment. However, when the sheriff solicited interest for that assignment, no one within the department that meets the experience requirements solicited interest. Obviously, he still wants to just participate regionally in Metro, has experienced officers who are willing, but otherwise, under the current language, not eligible for consideration. So through working with the union, we have developed a letter of understanding that would allow that assignment to be made in this specific instance. And I would point out, for purposes of, one of the experience requirements is 5 years experience, or excuse me, 3 years of experience with the Clinton County Sheriff's Office. Obviously, we've heard the sheriff has hired some experienced officers recently from other departments who meet the requirements of overall law enforcement, but do not meet that specific provision of having the experience within Clinton County Sheriff's Office. So I point that out to say that the sheriff is not considering appointing a rookie officer to a metro position. I think it's an important distinction to be made. And as indicated by their signatures, the union has agreed, the sheriff is also supportive. I told him it was okay to sign because we're bringing it to recommendation to this committee, but obviously the board is a party to the contract and ultimately needs to approve the letter as well. Are there any questions of myself or Ms. Mills since she's here?
As I understand this, it seems like a permanent change rather than a temporary change, and I'm wondering the reasoning for that.
Currently, there are contractual limitations of how long this assignment can be. I believe it's 5 years is the maximum under the current language. And there also historically, depends on who the commander of the Tri-County Metro is, there also is interest in rotating officers on an ongoing basis, some, not necessarily a set time frame, but to bring new officers into the that environment. I mean, again, this is an undercover narcotics assignment that, you know, is the primary focus of the Tri-County Metro. So,
I guess I'm wondering like why the waiver though for it, if I read this, the waiver allows, it makes it not necessary for the 5 years?
oh, yeah, in terms of experience, yes, the waiver makes it we can disregard under this waiver the requirement for 5 years experience, although that it's addressed as both because it's is an experience requirement.
So I guess I'm wondering why is that not a temporary waiver,
Oh, well, this is only a one-time,
a one-time?
this is a one-time letter, and and again, we still continue to negotiate permanent changes to avoid this situation in the future.
All right,
Was that helpful? I'm sorry.
yeah.
Any other questions? Anyone like to entertain a motion?
Okay, I'll do it.
Is there support?
Sport.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is a prosecutor request.
Yes, Prosecutor Spagnolo requested, I'll take a step back. Prosecutor's office routinely participates in I'll call it a summer, I don't know if the time frame is, in a short-term internship program through PAM, which is the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan. They assign students to various prosecutor's office and fund the program. I think it's for 8 or 10 weeks. Prosecutor Spagnolo has requested after recent completion of that short-term internship program, he would like to retain the services of the intern that was assigned through the end of the year as they return to school, I believe this week, for up to 20 hours per week, which he thinks that would be high. The student's not sure exactly how much they'll be able to commit. But there is no funding associated with it, so there would be an additional cost to the county in term. This one would not be reimbursed by PAM as the other one historically is. Given the staffing, we are still looking to fill assistant prosecutor positions permanently. He feels that part of what this student could do would be continue to do research that would otherwise be done by permanent staff. So he's requesting that approval be granted to continue this intern through the remainder of the year. I think it makes sense. Overall, there's not a specific budget provision or an identified intern position on our position allocation list, which is why it's before you. I don't believe this will increase the total budget because of the referenced permanent position vacancies that we are currently saving from the budget on. So that is
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the prosecutor's request.
Second.
Discussion? I have a question as, do we know what the nominal, what the dollar value would be needed for the rest of the year approximately?
Well, based on the request, if it were fully utilized at the 20 hours a week, at the current rate, it'd probably be around 4,500 to 5,000 off the top of my head. But again, yeah,
Oh,
but
wow.
again, he doesn't expect that the student will be able to, once they get back
At
in,
the full 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
I
Understood.
think they're limited as to how many hours they can actually work.
Yeah.
And that's probably the max.
so.
Any other questions? Ma'am? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Commissioner comments? Anyone like to start?
I can't think of anything, so.
Okay. Brian?
No, just I'll have an upcoming quarterly coffee here at the end of September, beginning of October. I haven't set a date, but the location most likely will be at the Riley Township Hall, once I confirm that with them. Other than that, that is it.
Dwight?
Tri-County Office on Aging is working on their fundraising plans for the fall dinner. And John, they formed a team process to get people involved, and John, Commissioner Andrews signed up against me. So I'd like to encourage you all to think of me when you consider supporting Tri-County Office on Aging.
I just wanted to be on Bob Pena's group, so.
Commissioners, case made.
Is that it? Okay. Bruce? Oh, Bob, I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, I need some clarification. How many votes do we have to take the controller's contract out of the agenda?
I believe, well, we did not do a roll call vote, but I did not hear any opposition, so 1, 2, 3.
I objected to. I don't know if you heard me,
Oh, did you?
but I'm trying to figure out why did we take it out?
I can explain.
Someone gave me an explanation of why it was taken out of the agenda.
I can explain that. The job description was not included with the contract. There were some comps that were requested that were not available yet. And the contract does not end until mid-January, such that we would have time to bring forth all of the full information for a thorough board discussion in September.
Madam
Well,
Chair.
since I'm not there in person, I'll let it go by, but put down as I did not vote to have it removed from the agenda. And I have historical reasons for that, but I want to make sure that's known. Now, I owe you all an explanation as to why I'm not there. I'll try to make this as short and executive summary as I can. 3 weeks ago, I passed out at a family reunion, was taken to the St. John's Hospital because the family reunion was in St. John's. I was transferred to McLaren Hospital because I have a history of heart disease going back a long time ago. They weren't sure whether I had a heart attack or not. I did not. I was in the hospital for 2 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They ran an electrocardiogram and a stress test, both of which I passed. I was released for 2 days for Wednesday, Thursday. On Thursday afternoon, I passed out in the barber's chair for the second time. Back to McLaren Hospital I went. What do you call it? A catheterization was done on me to check my heart. It was okay. My cardiologist decided that I should wear a monitor for 4 days, which I did. Then I had to wait a week to get the appointment to go back again to find out what the monitoring results were. In the meantime, the cardiologist and my family physician who wrote the note said I needed to change the medication I've been on for the last 14 years, which they did. I'm beginning to see daylight. I don't feel like I'm going to pass out again right away. And along with the fact that I couldn't believe it, I was dehydrated, but they said that was one of the problems. So I've been consuming a lot of liquids and changing meds. There's still a sense of some lightheadedness, but nothing like before. And because, in the doctor's opinion, anybody passes out twice in a public place, there was a stress level that I had. I didn't want to admit the fact that even at my age, that I would be affected by some sense of emotion. I had to accept that. And so I had asked the administration to allow, I mean, the doctor said, of course, I'm sitting here in my own office talking about, with you guys, but I wanted you to know what the reason was. I have every intention, now that the medications have been changed, I have a sense of, I don't know if normalcy is the right word for a guy my age, and I admit to you, I'm older. I get that. I was told that this should help, and I did not need a pacemaker, by the way. That was suggested from the monitoring that if that came out that way, I would have to have another operation for a pacemaker. The test showed I didn't need that, which made me very happy. And I'm intending on being there Monday for our OPEB and savings account meeting and be in person for the board meeting. But it's been something I didn't think I'd have to go through, but after I ever go through, but I did. And, but you are my fellow board members. I respect all of you. I wanted you to know why I'm not there today. That's the only reason. Believe me, if I didn't have to adjust medications, which causes a dizziness, and today has been pretty good. So I'm thinking by the time Monday rolls around, I'm going to be hopefully back and fit again. So if I fall over during the meeting, guys, don't send me back to St. John's. Send me to McLaren, please. So, at any rate, that's my explanation. That's why I think in 25 years I have missed a total of 3 meetings, and or maybe 4. I don't recall. And none of you were around before anyway, so I could be lying to you, but I'm not. And I intend to fulfill my duties. This is one of these things in life that happens, and hopefully I won't have to contend with it in the future. But thank you for letting me explain, because I heard all kinds of stories that I was dead, that I was dying, that all kinds of stuff, and I said, well, I don't think I'm dead. I'm still here. So that's the truth of the matter, and I thank you for allowing me to do it this way, and I'm hoping that none of you have to go through this in your time. It's not something I want to go through. I don't like it. I still think I'm 50 in my head. I realize my body's telling me I'm not 50 anymore. So thank you.
Bruce? Thank you, Bob. Glad you're feeling better.
I do.
Still dealing with the M21 corridor, Scott Road area. Bingham Township has passed resolutions to send to the state. The city will address it Monday night, so I'll make sure I'm there again. Touch on the public comment from the Catalyst. This is not easy because I was a Catalyst member for years. And I'm open to discussions if you guys want to call me and talk to me about it. I feel we need to cure this issue. Some of the statements that were made, I personally believe are untrue here today. I'm not going to corner a person in a meeting like this to discuss those truths. Personally, I'm getting bombarded from the Catalyst actions and supposedly representing Clinton County. I take that kind of serious because we are Clinton County. I would be open for some discussions. I have a very harsh result. I'm trying to get by that. That's why I'm opening up for discussions. I did talk to Zach in regards to my reaction. Zach said, Bruce, calm down. But I would be open for discussion on your opinion, on your field, on what you're hearing in the public. I'm not in everybody's area. I'm in my area, and people come to my office and complain. I feel it needs to be addressed. on a final situation. And I guess I'm gonna leave it at that, until we can all have a word for your opinions, and then I will address it again. Other than that, I know I have more stuff, but I'm drawing a blank right now. The comments and public comment kind of took me there a little bit, so. Other than that, I'm done.
Okay. I've got one thing to say, and Bob, I appreciate your comments and respect your comments with respect to the administrator's contract. I think there's no doubt in anybody's mind here that we've got the right person for the job. I think that being very thorough with how we address renewal of this contract is important. I feel that for all of us to have all of the right paperwork is important, and I hope that prior to next month, coming to this meeting, you will all have read the contract, you will all have read the job description, you will all have reviewed the comps, and bring forth any questions you have with respect to how this office functions with the board, and we can all have a good discussion. I think the public is looking for accountability, and that demonstrating that is important, and that we will be able to do that next time around. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and we will talk about that next month. That's all I've got.
I would just, only one thing relative to that, to clarify that the discussion, you asked me to put together comparables, which I'm in the process of doing. That occurred on Monday, so it was not intentionally left out of.
Oh, completely,
I
there's-
just want to clarify, it was, that information isn't available. It wasn't
It was not
left out
neglected.
of
No.
the packet.
Thank you. Administrators report?
I have nothing.
Any other business? Going once, twice, okay. Motion to adjourn?
Support.
Second.
All in favor, we're adjourned.
You can just.